I'd like to call the regularly scheduled meeting for the Village of Tinley Park Plan Commission to order. At this time, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll take a roll call.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Present.
Commissioner Gatto, Commissioner Hamilton,
Present.
Commissioner Manny,
Present.
Commissioner Merrick. Here. Commissioner Martinez.
Here.
Commissioner Montalvo,
Here.
Commissioner Sepisi, Chairman Gray.
Here. Okay.
We have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. We'll move on to communications. Staff, are there any communications at this time?
So Mr. Egan Montalvo is our newly appointed plan commissioner. He got appointed 2 days ago. So welcome. Good to have you. We sent you the packet, and again, any questions, feel free to ask. We're a nice group. So,
Okay.
thanks.
Welcome aboard. Okay, we will move on to approval of the meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the April 3rd, 2025 Plan Commission meeting.
Motion.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Martinez, seconded by Commissioner Manny. All those in favor of approving the April 3rd, 2025 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
What does it say, March 20th?
Did I say March 20th?
No,
should
this
be
says
March
March
20th.
20th.
Should be March 20th.
We didn't have a meeting on the 3rd.
Oh, I
Thought this said April.
yeah, I
You
thought,
can
it
just say March 20, you can just.
I'm sorry, let me
start over.
redact that.
Yeah.
Why do I have?
The minutes for the April thing in the packet?
April, mine says April. All those in favor of approving the March 20, what was it?
20th.
20th, 2025 Plan Commission notes, minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Good catch, Commissioner Gaskell. Let's see why. We'll move on to item number 1 for tonight's meeting. Item 1 is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Ramsey El Shafi of RE Development Solutions on behalf of Louisville Hotel Partners LLC 11 variations from the zoning ordinance for hotel lot size, items related to the urban design overlay, parking, masonry, and building height for new construction of a True by Hilton Hotel at 18303 LaGrange Road in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District. Site plan and architectural approval will also be considered. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Manny. All those in favor of opening the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. The public hearing is open. I have received certification that the public hearing notice was published in a local newspaper. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after the staff's presentation. So staff, please proceed.
All right, so this is the True Hotel. We had a workshop on this back in March. It's just south of the Gas and Wash on 183rd and LaGrange. 2.63 acres. They're proposing a 4-story, 122-key hotel with a pool, conference center, gym, all those amenities. It's currently zoned B3, which allows hotels on 5-acre lots. They're requesting a variation to shrink that lot size requirement. It's surrounded by other hotels and commercial development. And at one point, the property was subdivided illegally with the Gas and Wash parcel, but that issue's been rectified. So like I said, 122 rooms. There'll be a conference center, and that one before, breakfast service and a pet relief area. They've revised the elevation drawings based on feedback from the Plan Commission at the March workshop. And now the use of EFS has been largely eliminated, and it's all, or generally all, approved materials now. So the requests are a variation to permit a hotel on less than 5 acres, a variation to permit a 4-story building in the B3 zone, variation to permit a building behind the build-to line in the urban design overlay, variation to permit a building with a side entry in the urban design overlay, variation to permit a second curb cut in the urban design overlay, variation to allow decreased frontage composition in the urban design overlay, variation to eliminate the requirement for cross-access in the urban design overlay, variation to reduce the amount of required on-site parking, variation to allow parking within the front setback in the urban design overlay, and also in the side setback in the urban design overlay. I mentioned that they are no longer requesting the masonry variation, and then one final variation for a ground sign less than 10 feet from the front property line. So here's the site plan. It changed very slightly since the last time you saw it. Probably couldn't spot the differences unless you had the dimensions real large for you. So really minor changes. They are changing the retaining wall design within the stormwater basin. So it's going to be curved instead of squared off like it is here. One-way circulation. Entrance is going to be on the north side of the building with a drop-off, and then motorists would continue through the site to park. And the building is relatively close to the street, so there's relatively direct access for pedestrians and people arriving by other means. So this graphic is an annotated site plan that points out some of the specifics of the variations. So that red X is to eliminate the rear cross access that the Gas and Wash property proposed. The blue arrow on the top is to show that there's parking in the side setback. Blue arrow at the bottom right is to show there's parking in the front setback. Orange arrow is to show a second curb cut. Red arrow is to show the building is set back beyond the build-to line. The urban design overlay wants buildings between 0 and 20 feet from the street, and this is greater than that. The ground sign close to the front property line is circled in red, and the bars on the side show the frontage composition that the urban design overlay wants. It wants it to be as wide as those middle purple dots, but it's only as wide as the green. So during the workshop, we discussed a hotel on less than 5 acres. That issue seemed like it was resolved based on the discussion. We also talked about all the variations from the urban design overlay, how that that set of regulations kind of creates barriers to developing in a more context-appropriate way, kind of cramming in urban design policies on LaGrange, which is basically just a highway off-ramp in this area, isn't necessarily the best use of urban design-focused zoning. So we discussed those as well. Here's the revised elevations. So this is the north side. They've kept the multicolor motif design, and they've replaced most of the EFS with fiber cement board or face brick. The remaining EFS is mostly those, the bright colorful elements on the motif. Here's the south side, and east and west. So here's the table explaining each facade's material composition. They have met the code. They've exceeded in some areas. So That variation request is gone, and now the proposal would comply with all of our material standards in the zoning ordinance. Here's I forgot the materials in the, yeah. Here's a picture of the material board. At the workshop, I had the physical samples. I forgot to bring them tonight, so I apologize for that. But yeah, they haven't changed. The only thing is now they're going to be using fiber cement for some of the different color wall coverings instead of EIFS. So here's the surrounding development pattern. This was to really show that the hotels and commercial development in the area generally was not asking for masonry variations, and they were complying with the standards in the zoning ordinance. And so with that request eliminated, I think we're good to go on that. Yeah, so we discussed masonry and we discussed building height at the workshop. Hotels in the area are also 4 stories, and they've been granted variations to be 4 stories. So this would be in line with previous approvals. Here's information on the parking required. So our zoning ordinance requires 1 parking space per hotel room plus 1 per employee. They're proposing 91 total spaces, which works out to 0.68 spaces per room, assuming they have, I believe, 8 employees at a time. And they submitted a report saying that at properties that they have in their portfolio, this is an appropriate parking number. Many people are arriving by ride share, or it's, carpooling or things like that. So they're confident that they can make this work with this amount of parking. The landscape plan was also discussed at the workshop. They've increased the plantings in the areas that we recommended that they increase them. They've increased the shrub count to reduce the deficiency of the previous proposal. The site is very well landscaped, and our landscape ordinance is pretty intense, so it doesn't fully meet the requirements, but they are asking for a waiver, and did improve the proposal by adding shrubs where we requested they do so. The last item we discussed at the workshop was a variation to allow the ground sign less than 10 feet from the property line. Just the way the site works out, they need, they would have to lose 1 or 2 parking spaces if they were to comply with this 10-foot rule that we have in the zoning ordinance. So they're looking to have it, the sign about 1 foot from the front property line. There's no site triangle issues that would arise from having it in that location. So that was discussed and seemed like that was agreeable. And yeah, then I have the standards on screen.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. Does the applicant have anything to add?
Unless there's questions, I think Michael did a good job.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Al-Shafi, if we do have questions, we'll have to swear you in, but if there's no questions, you can sit tight till then. So we'll begin with Commissioner Hamilton. Any questions or concerns?
My biggest question is on, if you're full and you have 130 rooms rented out, Taylor Swift is at the concert venue. What do people do if they want to stay at your hotel?
So you want to swear me in?
Yes, I'll swear you in. That didn't take too long. Did that, okay. Mr. Al-Shafi, please state your name for the record.
Ramsey Al-Shafi.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
All right. So it's a good question. I mean, historically, so our partner, Superhost Hospitality, has about 25, 30 hotels in their portfolio of management. And they state, I mean, with Hilton's support, that occupancy is roughly around 65-75% range. It's rarely 100%. However, with the 8 spots that employees are allocated right now, the employees could park off-site and then be bused onto the parking spot, and that way you have additional 8 spots as well, which out of 122 rooms, I don't know the math off the top of my head, but that should get you at least another 10 plus rooms for allocation. So what would that be, 5%
So that'd be,
or
if you're
more?
at 91, that's gonna, if you got 8, you're at 99. If you got 122, that's 23. So you'd be 23 deficient. And I understand, and, Commissioner Hamilton's an engineer like me, so you always design for the worst case, not for the average. So that still would be like 23, because there will be some, you would imagine, some event where you are at capacity, even though on average, you know, on a good day, you're 65%. And I understand there's ride share and some other stuff, but would that be 23 rooms? I don't know.
And I think, I mean, maybe staff can help me out, but I believe the parking requirement, if we are not sufficient, it is our obligation to help our clients find additional parking, whether that's on our site or on an alternative site. I believe that's our obligation as a landowner and developer, if I'm not mistaken.
You're required to provide parking on site, right? So, and we've gone through this time and again with different types of developments and different issues, right? It's, do you plan for parking for Black Friday? I'm old, so Black Friday or Christmas Eve or whatever, or do you provide enough parking that's gonna get you by every other day of the year? And it's a art, not a science sometimes when it comes to that. They provided us information saying, this is what our occupancy rate is, this is usually how much parking we need, and we usually have more than enough. If they got in a situation, like you said, Chris Stapleton's coming this summer, and the hotel books up, they will need to find a way to provide that parking. And like you said, shuttles or accommodating your guests, or if it's a situation where you're booked up but you won't have enough parking, like they might not be able to book up a hotel, and that's just
Correct.
something they'll have to deal with.
Right, and I'm assuming because you got all those other hotels there, they'd be in the same situation if Taylor Swift or, I think Taylor Swift would pack them in more than Stapleton, and that's not a dig at him, but,
With $200 tickets.
but what I'm saying is, so I don't think you could be like, oh, well, they won't notice over here, because I think they'd probably be in the same situation, right? So, yeah, that's my main concern, like, I don't have an issue, you meet the masonry, I'm agreeing that leave it less than 10 feet, because you don't want to knock out 2 parking lots. I'm in agreement about that access, that rear access. I visited the site between now and, not the last time, but the time before that, and yeah, with all the different grades and stuff, it doesn't make sense to have a rear access there. So, but yeah, parking is probably the main issue. Everything else, I think, for me, looks pretty good, but any other comments on the parking?
No,
Commissioner?
I would think ultimately the loss would be the hotels.
Yeah,
You can't sell the rooms because you don't have the parking space, so if you're willing to
the
take that-
operator that we are working with feels extremely confident, and based on other reports of other properties under their management, they have no concerns about this. And yes, I mean, if we're fully booked, would be our loss if we cannot fill 100% of the rooms because of a parking. But we're comfortable with that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Merrick?
Yeah, so I don't have a question for you, but the bigger picture piece, now that all this stuff has been handled and taken care of, is the concern that we talked about when Gas and Wash went in about the traffic on 183rd and the fact that it's nearly impossible for people coming out of the hotels, the Gas and Wash already, to take a left turn onto 183rd to go onto LaGrange, or even to take a left turn to go take a right turn onto LaGrange. That's backed up, stacked like 25 cars deep. I've seen it already. And I'm, 25 is a nice sort of roundish number sort of thing. But I'm not trying to exaggerate, right? I've seen this on multiple times heading over there. And I know we talked about this when Gas and Wash went in about, I don't know, we don't own 183rd, and we need to work with the county or other folks to make that happen, but that's a big concern for me about, that's totally unsafe already, because it's I don't know if you can have a stoplight so close to a stoplight, it strikes me as no, but maybe you can. But
Gas and Wash is required to install a stoplight there within, they were given a time frame.
Okay,
I believe it was a maximum of 5 years, but I think the development and plans for that have already been underway through the county.
okay,
They will be installing a light there.
And you can have them that close together because they'll be synchronized, but then that requires us working with the county, working with IDOT, because we have 3 different jurisdictions controlling each of these streets. So it's just more complicated, takes longer to make happen, but yeah, they will put a light there.
That was always the plan.
Yep.
okay, I just want to put that on the record, because it's already an issue,
Yep.
I think, right? Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Manning?
Yeah, my issue was the same as, Terry's, the parking. So, I think it's just to be unfortunate that, you will be busy and you you have no parking for others, so just wanna see how that would, turns out. But, I mean, that's all my comment.
Okay. Fair enough, Commissioner Manning. Commissioner Gaskell?
So how many variations are we down to now?
They're requesting 11.
The
11.
majority of those are from the overlay district.
Yeah, mostly from the urban design overlay. Which is what
And what makes 11
Gas and
variations
Wash, that
necessary?
happened, Marriott, that happened. Pretty much everything that's been subject to this urban design overlay has required variations to get done.
Well, I'm sure it has. Building a house requires some variations.
I think for the most part, with Gas and Wash and Marriott, they received several variations from the overlay district. The urban design overlay district is a new urbanism, kind of like, and they kind of did a blanket all the way south of town. This is an auto-oriented, right off the interstate kind of, like, it's a spot that doesn't really make sense to have, no front yards, alleys in the back. We already approved a gas station, we already approved 2 hotels. It is developed in a way that the overlay district does not really make a lot of sense here, because that's more for pedestrian-friendly environments, and this is more auto-oriented. If you get to certain other parts of town, because it's everything south of 179 is in that overlay. So there are neighborhoods and other things where it might work out better. This is just one of those situations for right off the interstate. These variation requests have been coming in for this, little area of town.
Well, I don't know, the first variation is the lot size. That you were cutting that in half. And now we got the parking problem, we're cutting that in half over what's required. So, those are 2 big issues.
Fair?
Okay. Commissioner Martinez?
I guess just echoing kind of what we already heard. The number of variations is not, a great number for us to work with, but then also parking is something that we have to really take a look at. The hard part of this is that I don't want to shrink the number of parking, but I'm wondering, more so about pedestrian and vehicle circulation here. So the 2 parking spots that I see are, or there we go, 3 parking spots that I see are kind of past that front yard setback that we would want. I'm not sure if that allows for the best, vehicle circulation there or pedestrian circulation, because you're gonna have people walking across cars to get to the pet relief area, and then the northern parking space, if somebody wants to reverse out of there, cutting it close to the curb cut. And then the couple of parking spaces that are parallel to the
Excuse me.
end of the building there, you're gonna have deliveries and loading zone passing cars, or people who are taking the garbage out passing the cars. So I just want to hear your thoughts about those couple of things for those parking spaces.
So, there's a couple questions there, so
Yes.
let me try to unload all of them. So, for loading, there is a specific loading area, which is on the, I think you're trying to load it.
West.
Yeah, it'd be on the far west, so there's like a little highlighted or hashed out area.
Which
So there
way
is
is
a designated zone for that,
This way.
in order for a truck to park there and unload as needed. And there's still plenty of width within the drive aisles for additional traffic through there. Initially, we had two-way circulation. However, in order to kind of incorporate everything, get a little bit more parking, and then move the site north because of some challenges with grading and elevations and removal of retaining wall and things like that, we did a one-way access. And I understand the point you're making on the northwest of that one car if it's reversing out. But these drive aisles are really wide. I don't know how, I think they're double wide compared to a standard one-way. So I think there should be plenty of space there. And you have the turnabout where most of the cars, when they're coming in into the curb cut, they're gonna, if they're dropping off, they're gonna pull into that hashed out area in the front entrance of the hotel. So there's designated areas where there can be cars that are stacked, still providing other cars the ability to pull out. And then
One
Yeah.
quick comment, Mr. Al-Shafi. Where that loading zone is, I'm just curious why that isn't put against the building or the sidewalk so that cars don't go in between where a guy or gal is unloading a truck, because you're already setting that up for, I think, some conflict. You would-
So there's parallel parking between that curb to curb on the east side of the building along the sidewalk. And so there's additional parking along that direction. And that's why we wouldn't put the loading on the curb, is because we have that parking allocation there. Now, most of the loading is not done during business hours. Most of it's done evening or early in the morning before there's a lot of visitors on site. And so, I mean, we just needed a designated area. It's not that it'll be used that frequently.
All right. Well, I'm curious, because now there's gonna be, let's say you're at capacity and there's 4 parked cars there in those spots. Where does that guy or gal how do they get into the building with their dolly of stuff or whatever?
There's a sidewalk on the, like the south east corner of the lot, or not lot, but the building section. There's an area there, and then there's a access door. I mean, they're not loading pallets into the building or anything like that. It's small amounts of product that they're bringing on a little like forklift dolly.
I got you, so but those are 4 spots, right? So if there's a
Yes.
parked car there, unless they're going around the spot, they're gonna have to go around the curb and either go to the north or the south, right, to get to that sidewalk?
Yeah, I don't have the drawing with all the dimensions in front of me, but those spots on the north and south portion are not just wide enough for a vehicle. Those ones are much longer than the 2 in the center. So there should be ample room from our design when we were looking at practical, how would they do this?
Okay, well, I hope that's
And-
considered, because like, if there is a car there, nobody wants to get their car hit by somebody bringing in, supplies and stuff.
And Hilton has a much stricter process of what they will look at and say, is this gonna be practical for our operation of a hotel? And, I mean, they're content with the design. They didn't foresee any issues with the operational perspective of the loading, unloading, and staging of the vehicles. Just to give some context, they have had a look at this and understand the operations of these hotels better than that I would.
I would
I
just
guess
say,
we're-
well, go
yeah,
ahead,
We're
Commissioner
just
Mike.
kind of pointing out it could be improved.
Yeah.
I think doing some, I guess, some options for that, maybe like a depressed curb where it's
Yeah.
like clearly this is the path that this person's taking. Even the landscape islands at the end of the road might get wider for landscaping. It just, you might get a better design out of kind of looking into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and these are preliminary engineering, so these haven't gone through final engineering to really kind of go through all those exact details, but I hear you, and I think that's a good takeaway that we can look at incorporating.
Could I jump on Amanda real quick?
Yes,
Because I think
yes.
that was a good point. Though, so our typical stall are 18 feet, and I know those are at least 20 to 24.
Yeah,
So you'll have enough room if you're even depressing a curb, striping a walkway so people
Yeah.
don't park in it. You'll have 4 or 5 extra feet anyway. Like, I think you've thought of it, it's just not like.
it's not on this
Yeah.
level of detail.
So I
think
think that
that'd
would
be
be a very easy fix.
Thank you.
So, and I know the grade's all wonky because they
Mhm.
reversed to put the gas station closer to the corner, so I knew they've done something wonky there, and you got the retaining wall. Is there any section of that, and I can't remember if this was discussed for this project, about any underground detention, like in terms of, because you do really need some more real estate.
So there is some underground, there's an underground, no underground vault at all, okay. So it is all in that detention basin area. And that was, I mean, by design also because of the grading and where we needed to kind of get everything to fit on the site properly and with the necessary circulation. I mean, even with taking more of those sections out, which in order to get your fire truck like routing, it was even more challenging. We tried to fit a couple more spots on that northeast and southeast corners, but we couldn't get the fire truck circulation proper. And so, I mean, this was the maximum parking that we could reasonably kind of work out on existing site plan.
Wait, you
Yes, sir.
can't get a fire truck through there properly?
No, we can. What I'm stating is if we were to change the design to add additional parking on the northeast or southeast portions in those corners, and even to changing like the detention into like a rounder area, then we would not have the ability to get the necessary turn radius.
Have you seen the size of our equipment?
Yeah, we've done an auto turn.
Okay, as long as you're aware.
Yes, sir.
Just going back to the, I guess, pedestrian kind of walkability around this site. So for the pet relief area, is that kind of the same thing? People are gonna go between those cars to get there, or is there,
There's a sidewalk.
so there's gonna be access along that sidewalk?
Yeah,
Okay, to get, is it a gated area? Sorry.
no,
Okay,
no, it's just an open designated area.
okay.
Yeah, I would look at that plan again.
Can I?
Having more room, one second, Commissioner Gaskell, having more room shouldn't affect if you left the radius as it is and just extended the back, if you left that where it is and just extend that back 10 feet approximately or something, I mean, that should gain you at least 10 more parking spots. That looks a little bit more reasonable. I mean, I know with those big, I know there's a big issue with the grade there, but I just imagine, like, you could cut away at that detention pond somehow. I can't imagine that having more real estate's gonna make it will if you move the turning radius to the back end, but if you leave it where it is and just extend it out, and then move your retaining wall, and if you have to, add some storm detention, underground vaults, or something. I think, I mean, you know,
We are confident with the parking ratio as the hotel developer and based on historical experience. I mean, that is, and I'm pretty sure there's record of other hotels that have had very similar parking ratio that have not had issues in the past either.
well, maybe if it's pretty transparent with the customers that you have only 91 spots and you literally give out, here's 1, here's 2, here's number 91, we're all full, we can't book. Because, you know, to have something where you can't be running on all cylinders seems like a deficient design. Even though on an average day, yes, you're probably fine, and I'm not gonna dispute that. But if there's weddings in the area or big events that draw everybody to Tinley Park, which we're trying to get more people drawn with Harmony Square and stuff, you may be setting yourself up for some headaches. I'd hate to be the manager on one of those days, right? But, I don't know. Commissioner Martinez, any more comments?
Nope, that's
Okay, and
Can I
before I
make-
get to Commissioner, go ahead, go ahead.
We don't anticipate that 100% of the customers will be driving. There's a lot of customers that are using public transportation, Uber, Lyft. I mean, there's a lot of other ways that these hotel customers are coming to our site. Even employees, a lot of them are using public transportation, not bringing a vehicle. So as long,
But you
although,
don't really mean you mean other, not driving their own vehicle, because
Yeah.
there's no public transportation there.
That stops there,
You
yeah.
mean private transportation,
But-
alternate means.
but there's public transportation in the general area that some of our staff could possibly use and Lyft share or work with other employees to kind of get to work.
I'll grant the latter, but not the former. There's not sustainable public transportation that allow people to get to and from work in this area.
Okay.
It really isn't.
I agree. I concur with Commissioner Merrick. Commissioner Gaskell, you wanted to bring something up.
I just wanted to just make a quick comment. I just think there's too much stuff going on in such a small space. I mean, I'm looking at this drawing, and it just doesn't look like there's room for anything.
Okay, well,
That's just what I see.
okay. Commissioner Montalvo, I wasn't ignoring you. Go ahead, sir, with your comment.
I have some real concern regarding the number of parkings being reduced beneath the allowance. What historically, what is the least percentage the Plan Commission has previously approved in terms of parking? Do we have that figure?
I don't have like an average per project. I can pull up Marriott here and see what they had in terms of a ratio from rooms to parking. They had it in my head 2 months ago. Give me a second. But that's a good question.
I have a condo in just south of St. Louis. 21 years ago, the developer was allowed to reduce the number, had a variance for not enough parking. 21 years later, we're still living with the problem. There's just simply not enough parking. I'm concerned about guest number 92, who shows up. While I understand that the average might be a certain number, as an engineer, I don't normally design a distribution system for the average. I design it to the peak. And something tells me your pro forma, that you submitted for the banks are basing on a average occupancy of the number of parkings that you've got. So I want some specific questions in regard to the parking and the southern side of this building. What's the distance, curb to curb, if you were to do, instead of angled parking, perpendicular parking, you could probably squeeze in more, but it would require a much wider, it appears that you've got some space that you could move that southern curb even further south and then go from an angled parking. That would also accommodate people who erroneously come in the south entrance and then, I can't park because I can't get into these angled parking. They only accommodate counterclockwise traffic.
yeah, so to answer your question about the one-way versus having straight parking or perpendicular parking. So we were challenged with the staff to go to a one-way directional. One, because of the curb cuts and location of them, so then people aren't turning into one another. But also, so then we can bring the site north because of some elevation change we have on the south. There was supposed to be roughly 100-foot retaining wall in length on that south portion of the lot. And the village advised against retaining walls. And so we had moved the site north, having to shrink some of those drive aisles and coming up with angled parking. And I'm not an engineer by any site. So going with angled versus a straight parking spot, do we lose, do we gain? I mean, yeah,
Yeah, and because, I can just follow, because it was actually staff's recommendation to do the one-way loop. One, it got rid of retaining walls that tend to be maintenance issues or things like that. If we can avoid a retaining wall, we try and do it. Our engineers try to do that. Two, there is, you can't see it on here, but 183rd and White Eagle Drive, there's, on the south end, there is actually another road that comes here. No one uses it right now, but if anything to the east gets developed, we're worried about a lot of two-way traffic coming in and out and then having this weird thing. So if it's just one way, you're not worrying about people coming in and out, just coming out. And then secondly, their drop-off is on the side. And we were talking about how people are just gonna do U-turns in the middle of the parking lot to drop there and then just like, so we were trying to like actually make it just like.
Are you gonna have signage to, because while you
Yes.
can design for counterclockwise, you're gonna have people come in the south entrance.
Right.
You know that.
Well,
And I guess the other last question, if you really can't change the design, is there some sort of plan for overflow? Do you have, can you contractually arrange for nearby, you've got other people where you can say, well, again, I'm concerned, what does guest 92 do to park?
and we're going based off of just experience. So, I mean, I provided, excuse me, I provided an exhibit that shows 4 other hotels that are managed by the same group. And all of those hotels have a much lower parking requirement, let's see here, and utilization in terms of what is expected versus reality. And so I encourage to kind of look through that a little bit. But I mean, we are providing, I don't have the ratios on here, but for example, we have a 100-room hotel with 90 total parking spots. And this is a 122-room hotel with, how many parking spots total are we at here? What's that? 91 without the employee, right? I don't have it in front of me.
Nothing precludes you from entering into some type of arrangement.
We can certainly explore that.
I would throw that out there.
Yeah.
First, I would look at, like I said, you've got it limited so that the only way you can actually park a vehicle is to pull in, come in a counterclockwise fashion, which I understand that's a design, but there's also people who are gonna miss the sign. You've gotta have, now you've gotta put signage that says do not enter here to
Yep.
kind of make sure that they're getting it the right way. But you could also, like I said, if you, I don't know how many you get extra, maybe you only get 4 or 6, but when you're this deficient from the requirement, 4 or 6 more parkings might make a difference, I don't know. I know that there's a requirement of like a 20-foot length of the parking, 25 feet if you're gonna do double-way traffic. So you're looking at maybe a 65-foot width, and I don't know the distance curb to curb if you have that space. But if you did, I would ask that we find out how many additional parkings could be accommodated on the southern parking lot area if you went perpendicular, or at least try to identify how you would accommodate guest number 92.
Yeah, and I think that's a good opportunity that we can explore. I'm happy to look into that and talk with our partners on how we can accommodate that. We have gone through multiple iterations and I mean, staff kind of helped us develop this current plan in order to get the necessary directional driving that they encouraged and what we felt, I mean, as collectively what would work feasibly. And I mean, again, Hilton themselves are comfortable with this parking ratio. And they would not advise us to build a hotel with the Hilton brand if they didn't feel like their 92nd guest was not going to be able to park on the site. And so, I mean, that accreditation, I guess, it gives me a little bit more comfort that the parking ratio should be more than sufficient.
I also just want to add that White Eagle Drive, from 183rd all the way to where it enters the parking lot for the Crab Restaurant and the other hotels and everything, is 40 feet wide curb to curb. On-street parking is allowed there. We do have the overnight parking prohibition, but if, you know, the 8 employee spaces need to be relocated because the hotel's fully booked, they would be able to park on the street. Police generally enforce the parking ban based on complaints, so there's a potential to work with the police department for any overflow overnight parking on White Eagle Drive. That's something that we could consider, or that the petitioner could consider, but the road is wide enough to allow additional parking.
The one thing that is clear is you do need some plan to, right, some sort of contingency plan, whether you suspend that, take overnight parking to accommodate, but I
I
do,
can give you actually some information from Marriott here.
Sure.
So the Marriott is an extended stay and a regular hotel. Phase 1's being built now is the extended stay. Overall, for the project, they were given a variation to reduce the total required by 46 spaces. So we gave a variance for 129 spaces when they were required 175. That comes out to about 73%. They're going 91 for 130, that's 70%. But Marriott did have, so Marriott has a banquet facility as well, so their number was a little bit higher, but they're like, banquets will be infrequent, but they did have a land bank of 25 spaces, so there's open green space on their lot. If it ever became a problem, this is kind of what you're saying, a backup plan shown to you guys was, if at any point they can't handle the parking, they would have to develop that green area into a parking lot
That's
to
right.
accommodate. So while the ratios are similar, they did have like a backup plan, like you were saying. So if there was a situation to get a parking agreement, an emergency parking agreement with a neighbor, say Jumbo Crab or something else, is that something that would be
yeah,
interesting to the board?
but you have to have that, because right now it's just speculation. What if we do this, or what if, we'll figure some out, or we'll tell, you know, Danny to take an Uber to work, you know, that night. That's very sketchy. I think you need a hard plan.
Yeah, and I think the other piece here, I don't think I'm wrong about this, but hotels don't keep track of who has a car,
No.
right? So when you're booking, it's not, the idea that after customer 91 came and there's no more parking, that we wouldn't sell room 92, that's not true. You'd sell them all, and then when people show up and they don't have parking, you'd scramble and try to figure out what to do. So just the way we've conceptualized it isn't accurate to how a business would work. And I understand you won't have peak hours or peak capacity on a regular basis. I get that, and I'm not a big fan of parking lots. I think they're horrible. As somebody who's in favor of walkability and all that sort of stuff. But in a space like this that is so automobile-driven, right, and doesn't fit into the urban design overlay sort of piece, I think we do need to have assurances. I just think about the potential of the sports parks that may expand, that may draw people in. I'm chasing a daughter around the country doing travel softball in all these, this is what we do, right? There's car after car after car after going into these hotels where they negotiate something with the hotel and the entire place is filled with softball players.
Yeah.
To capacity, because they've negotiated that. And then people have trailers and everything else that they're bringing in, so it's not like everybody with just a car, they've got other crap too. So I like the contingency piece.
Yeah, and to your point, my wife and I, because we'll go to the, that steak place there from time to time, Texas Roadhouse, when we're waiting, we walk around the perimeter of the one hotel, and you had all these, like, softball players lugging their equipment, and you saw buses and other stuff, and I understand, sometimes you do, just from a standpoint of, it's not always a one-to-one ratio, sometimes you travel, you know, in a group, 2 people take one room, you take one room, so it's not always a one-to-one ratio. So, you know, and that works in the favor of the hotel, in this case having, but I think if you don't have that contingency for when they do need those parking spots, and as Commissioner Merrick said, it's not like, unless you are giving out a card where you know, oh, I got the 91st one, now for the parking spot, that they have to display or something, but you have to have some sort of, I think, contingency. Otherwise, why build with that many rooms or that footprint area? Like the first floor, square footage, I would reduce that to put parking lots, because like if, it seems like a weird ratio to have. But I'm not in the hotel business, so obviously there's some sort of maybe, it's probably not one-to-one per se, but to Commissioner Montalvo's point, if you had 4 spaces, I could live with it. 4 spots that are like worker guys or gals that can move off, but like 31, that's a little bit dicey, I think, But yeah, some sort of contingency, I think.
Happy to explore that. I mean, we're still in a review stage, so we need to make sure this hotel is going to kick off. And then, I mean, we're happy to have conversations with the neighbors to see if there's a partnership that we can work out for parking contingency.
I guess my question would be for direction for the petitioner from you guys is just, this seems just to be like kind of the main sticking point at this point. It seems like everybody's had a comment about parking. Do you, A, want to see them change the site plan to add more parking somehow? Or B, would a contingency plan, if they get with a neighbor who says we can do a shared parking agreement for 20 of our spaces? I think Jumbo Crab would be the most likely, just because they close at night and people stay at hotels overnight, like something like that. Now, I don't know how they all work out, because they also have hotels that all share, and they may not want to share with you.
Yeah.
So, would a contingency, something like that, would either of those work, or do you want to see one more than the other?
A contingency is fine by me. There's many ways to solve a problem, right? As long as the issue is covered and it doesn't impinge on that. But I think even just a casual conversation with your engineer or architect about, is there any way you can expand either to the south with a retaining wall if one's needed, even though I think it was said that the village didn't want a retaining wall, or something to the west a little bit, something, right? But if that's not feasible or economically or whatnot, get some sort of agreement in writing with your neighbors, be a good neighbor and to them as well. So, but either way, because I just think you guys came up to snuff on a lot of these other issues, or had good justification where there was none a month ago. So this is just, I think you're on the 1 yard line, in my opinion, anyhow. But I think you need some sort of assurances to punch it in, so to speak.
Can I ask just a clarification point? How much parking do you feel is sufficient? I mean, this is the number that we feel comfortable with. What do you feel if I need to go to a neighbor? I still don't feel one-to-one is required or needed, just based on the volume and those peak hours. But what do you feel as Plan Commission as a recommendation?
Well, I know, being an engineer, and Commissioner Montalvo and Hamilton are engineers, you take it to the peak, as he mentioned earlier. But again, I realize not everybody travels by vehicle and whatnot, but, we'll just take a straw poll. What would you suggest, Commissioner Hamilton?
Maybe a dozen more?
Okay,
I'll pass. I don't know
Yeah.
what the number should be.
sure.
Yeah, so, I'll say get 10 or 12 more, just to get that, to have that deficiency lessened.
For me, I would just say, I think it was 31 deficient, minus 8, meaning your employees are the ones that would have to be off-site. And so that would, you got those 8 parking spots, plus the additional, I think it's 23. So whatever that difference was, it's 122 to 91, so it's, I think that was the number.
31.
Yeah, 31, so,
It's 23.
so be 23, because if you have to move anybody, move your employees, and, because they won't be the ones that would be in for a shock, pulling in at like 11 PM with nowhere to
Right,
go.
you
Yeah.
gotta park down the block, yeah.
What would you think, Jim? What would you recommend? And again, this is just this kind of general,
I think the 10 or 12 would be a good shot.
okay?
I'm also 10 and 12.
Okay,
Every bit counts, that's fine.
okay. So,
So if we worked out a parking agreement for 10 to 12 spots, would this get,
No, I think we're looking at for you to increase it by 10 or 12 spots. Yeah.
either
That's what he
increase
said.
or work out a parking
No, you
arrangement?
increase by 10 or 12 spots and get the agreement for the remaining.
no, it was gonna, Commissioner Gaskell, it was set like, you can explore both, but like, generally speaking, as long as you get to that final number, we would be okay. And if you did get 12 and you have those 8, that's 20, and there's probably, like you said about the ride share and,
So you're looking at 10 to 12 off-site even?
yes, either on-site or off-site, but I think
I thought they were talking about on-site.
no.
I-
I think that will be the path
Either
of least
or.
resistance,
I-
but I don't know the neighbors there, as Jason mentioned, they may have agreements with other hotels, I don't know.
I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I can't give you a real answer today.
Yeah.
I need to have those conversations, but the conversation, the ask was either on-site or off-site,
Yeah,
one or the other. I don't feel that we can make this site work with those additional spots on-site. So I'm willing to have the conversations and do my absolute best to see if we can get those off-site, if we can kind of continue moving this forward.
I think too, what'll also be, again, we're just trying to come up with a solution.
Mhm.
We wouldn't, if they're fully parked to the south, like, I don't know how many extra spaces they have for parking as well. So just by our code,
Mhm.
you couldn't be like, well, they said I can use 20 of theirs.
They would need to be
They
allocated.
those 20
Yeah.
spaces, then I can't let you, so
Yes, I
we'll have to
understand that.
come to that understanding from a staff level as well.
you
before
also
we would-
mentioned like having some sort of, acknowledgement of having overnight parking along White Eagle if there's special circumstances, but then you do have to alert, the police because they will be writing tickets.
So,
I guess you could the goal would be to get the right number of parking spaces available. You could do some sort, if you don't have them physically on the site, some combination of additional parking spaces that are in the public right-of-way, and some sort of agreement with maybe Jumbo Crab for overnight accommodations, because they're not open at 2 in the morning. So, but ultimately, the goal isn't just to get a fixed number. If you're gonna go for a fixed number, it's the number that you're needed to have the site, to accommodate all your guests. And then trying to get theirs through a combination of all of the above.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we're happy to explore all the alternatives. Yeah, you want?
Yeah, I'll swear you in, yes, sir. Just state your name first.
Jerry White.
Okay, Jerry, do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
I just wanted to add here as an example. The hotels in Holland were totally sold out for 2 festivals. And we have a True and a Home 2 there. And we had all kinds of spaces empty. So that's where not only Hilton, but we did the study of our other places. And full nights, we were not, so we still had room. But that was a good one, that was a good test, because that's a huge festival. And plus, not only were all the
Excuse me, Jerry,
hotels
is this Holland, Michigan then?
Holland, Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Tulip Festival. Was it 2 weeks ago?
And
Yeah.
for context, Jerry works with our operator and partner, and is in charge of all of the development of our projects, and has overseen these hotels for, what, 40 plus, 30 plus?
20 plus years.
20 plus years?
Yes.
With Superhouse?
Yes. So I just want to bring that to your attention that somebody talked about Taylor Swift, but there's a case where all the hotels in Holland were sold out and we had excess parking spots. So not everybody even going to a festival was driving.
Okay.
So just want to pass that on, but we will do our best to come up with a solution here.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Thank you, Jerry, for that testimony. With that, any other comments from the commissioners?
So does it make sense for us to amend our approval, or contingent upon that, or to delay it for a future hearing? What is,
So what I've been thinking is you have two routes you can go. If you want to see their contingency plan and vote based off of that, I would suggest just continuing this public hearing to your next scheduled meeting. If you want to vote on it, we could condition the site plan approval based on a parking agreement being made that will accommodate all, we're granting this variation, but you have to show before you get a building permit that you've made an agreement and it's attached to that building permit. But if you guys want to see it beforehand, I would continue it. If you were okay with us kind of like handling that condition, you could just add a condition to the site plan.
I personally would just say add a condition, because that's something you can work out in the meanwhile, especially if it's, right, a conditional thing. But show of hands, would people here want to,
I'm okay with the condition.
I'm okay with the condition,
Yeah.
straw poll, not Gaskell, not, okay, so 6-1. So, okay, we would be okay with that. So when we get to that, we'll amend.
We'll add that condition.
We'll end that,
So we-
there's, amend that a parking, provided that a parking agreement is arrived at before issuing of a building permit. Okay. If there's no further questions, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Sorry, really quickly.
Oh, sure.
Do you think we should make that a little bit more vague, just in case they're not able to get a parking agreement and they could figure something out on site, or?
Or
Yeah.
working out with the police department if they allow us to
Sure.
do street parking?
That's a fair point.
Maybe just accommodating additional parking
Yeah.
where
Yeah,
feasible, or?
Yeah.
With a minimal number, with.
Well, they still need to have some kind of agreement, contingency agreement with the neighbor somewhere. I mean, you can't expect everybody, all those,
They would
if there
need,
were extra parking spaces needed, you can't expect them all to park on the street.
No.
Right, but she's making it vague enough where then that street parking, if they did find an additional spot on site and/or having a parking agreement, so something where it's general, so that we're not pigeonholing you just to get, because you may go to your neighbors and they may say, we can't, or
Mhm.
for whatever reason, right?
Mhm.
And maybe it's liability or something, but,
so
But
basically,
you-
we would just attach that as a condition, so when they come in for building permit, we'd be like, you need to show us your agreement, we're gonna attach it to this building permit, so it's on record that you're deficient in parking, you were given a variation, but the condition was that we need to have this.
We've done this
Um,
before. We
right.
did this with the bowling alley.
Yeah, it's
For
a
example,
contingency,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
to say that. So, if they can't get it, and they have to change their site plan, like, they would just have to come back in front of you to show, hey, we added this much parking on here. We need to request a new variation because we can't meet what you gave us. And that would be worst case.
Unless there wasn't a variation required, like if we were to
Sure, if you got
revive,
130 spaces on there, then,
not 130,
You
but we're
would not have
talking,
to
we're
get
talking about
variation.
10 to 12 additional, right?
yeah.
Not 130, we would talk
But the
about,
variation is to request the code minimum be
yeah,
reduced.
sorry, yeah.
So if you added 10, you'd
Of
still have
course.
to come in.
Yeah,
If you found 130, yes.
It went over my head, I
Yep.
hear you.
okay, fair enough. Any other comments? Okay, all those, if no further questions, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Okay,
Second.
motion made by Commissioner Martinez, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion is carried, the public hearing is closed. Staff, Michael, if you want to go over the standards at this time?
Okay. First standard is that the property cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted only to be used under the conditions and regulations by the zoning ordinance. Pertaining to the lot size, the petitioner states that the property is ideally located for hotel development and that the size of the lot is what the hotel industry is looking for new hotel development. Petitioner also states a similar variation has been granted by the Plan Commission for similar projects, and most hotels in the village are on smaller properties, and there are no other properties in the village zoned for hotel development that are at least 5 acres. For building height, the petitioner states the 4th floor is necessary to support the amenities of the hotel, so building a 3-story hotel would result in a lower quality hotel. Pertaining to urban design, the petitioner states they're working with the standard building model on a constrained site with topography challenges, making it challenging to fully conform with the standards of the urban design overlay. For cross-access, the gas and wash pond the gas and wash pond and the proposed pond for the True Hotel would make it challenging to add that cross-access. For the ground sign location, relocating the sign would reduce the amount of space for parking. And pertaining to parking, the petitioner states the amount is adequate to support the hotel development. Plight is due to unique circumstances, kind of rehashing what I just went through. Most hotels in the village are on smaller lots. Many hotels in the village are 4 stories instead of 3. For urban design, the site is arranged based on site constraints. I'll skip the rest. And then approving any of these variations would not alter the character of the locality. The site's undeveloped. This would be a similar development pattern with similar layout, similar auto orientation, everything. So it would be in line with the surrounding area. And then this is just a standard. Okay, and then for for architecture, I have them on screen. I'll just cycle through site plan and the first motion. So for this motion, it's just for the variations. So we do not need that extra condition on this.
We are going to do that, sorry.
Oh, we're going to put on the variation?
And Marriott, we conditioned the variation.
Got it.
So let's do
Okay.
it that way.
Okay. So when you're, whoever decides to make this motion, feel free to just say from the sections listed in the staff report rather than reading out 12 citations with Roman numerals. And then, yeah, we'll add that condition at the end. So otherwise, it's on screen.
May I have a motion number 1 regarding the variation?
I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner 11 variations from the zoning ordinance, including from the sections listed in the staff report, to develop a hotel in accordance with the plan submitted and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in the May 1st, 2025 staff report.
And
Conditioned
condition the
upon-
parking variation based off of
Conditioning the parking variation based off of additional.
an agreement being made to ensure minimum standards are met.
Okay. An agreement being made to provide additional parking, is that fine?
Yeah.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Martinez, seconded by Commissioner Montalvo. Mike, take a roll call, or Jason,
I'll
take a roll call?
Commissioner Manning,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Montalvo,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
and Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, motion 1 is carried. Now may I have a second motion regarding the site plan and architectural approval.
I'll make a motion to grant the petitioner site plan architectural approval for the development of a hotel at 18303 LaGrange Road in accordance with the plan submitted and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in the May 1st, 2025 staff report, subject to the conditions in the report.
Okay, motion made by Merrick, Commissioner Merrick. Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Merrick, seconded by Commissioner Manny. Jason, can I have a roll call?
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Montalvo,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Gasco,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, motion 2 is carried. So this item will go to the village board on June 17th, 2025. So good luck, Mr. El Shafi, you and your team. And I guess get with staff when you get some more clarification on the parking situation.
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for everybody for your time.
Okay, good luck, sir. We will move on to item number 2. Item number 2 on tonight's agenda is a workshop to consider recommending that the village board review and provide comments on the proposed 2025 downtown streetscape master plan. The plan seeks to create a cohesive vision for the public realm and right-of-way along Oak Park Avenue and adjacent streets. The goal of the streetscape plan is to create an attractive, unique, safe, and walkable environment that supports the existing infrastructure. Staff, if you want to present at this time?
Sure. So I'm just gonna go, this is just a workshop, so this is just a open conversation. We wanted to get it in front of you before we ever took it to a public hearing where we can have, a discussion if the public wants to come. We've already posted that for 2 weeks from now, but just wanted to give you some general guidelines and basics of what this is and how this came to be. So this is actually a plan from Lakota. They kind of started it while they were doing Harmony Square, going, okay, well, we're doing this one public space. The streets around it are gonna need to connect to it, right? Regionally drawing people in, it's not so much street design, like how many lanes and how fast they're going, but this is more like, increasing walkability. What is it's gonna look like, these transects, parkway trees, benches, flower pots, things like that, potential for bike lanes and things, but nothing concrete, nothing like an engineered plan. This is the step before that. This is a plan to hopefully get us into a situation where when grants can become available or we have TIF funds ready to use for beautification of our public right-of-ways, we have a plan showing what we're expecting. So like I said, over the last 6 years, this has kind of been sitting. It's been touched up a little bit, and over the past year, we were like, why don't we adopt this? Harmony Square is gonna be done, and it's time to go get money to start improving around it, You don't wanna have it be open for a couple of years and then go. We wanna just keep the momentum going. So overall, Lakota has helped us, kind of draft, giving us this landscape into just these corridors. Now, there are many more streets around Harmony Square and downtown. These are the ones we're focusing on right now. And they have them kind of like sectioned out into, Oak Park Avenue is obviously your main corridor. And then it's not quite streets, like arterial, subarterial, collector, local, but very similar. Because each street, as they're developing, is getting some different land uses there. So they're trying to put, the improvements that would be nice in those areas, right? So along Oak Park Avenue, there's gonna be more about being able to walk up and down, whereas stuff on the side streets, local streets, is more about trees, benches, things like that, beautification. So overall, I'm not gonna go page by the document. Hopefully, you guys have had some time to look over it, and you'll have a couple more weeks to look over it as well. But we have aerial views kind of outlining where everything's gonna be. Harmony Square is already built in there. We kind of have an overlay. We kind of remember what West Point is doing with the townhomes and things like that. So this is just giving like these aerial views of where public spaces are gonna be, where the crosswalks are gonna be, how it's all gonna work together to create a better space. And then they give options of different, like these different colors. Then like each one gets its own, if not one, but several options of what the future could look like. How are we gonna make these more walkable? How are we going to actually kind of like create a better place in that legacy district? Like by ourselves, right? Because the legacy district kind of handles private property. This is public property. That's what a streetscape plan is. So we have different like ideas and things like that. Obviously from a transportation planning standpoint, I think the comp plan and us as staff have ideas for Oak Park Avenues and some of them to make them even better than they are. But for right now, this kind of says, well, if everything stays the same, you could still achieve these goals. Or at least start going out for grants to do final engineering, and we could always change the roadways at that point. Especially with all the stoplights and all and those things on Oak Park Avenue and just signage that says you can cross here even though no one stops for you. That's not in here, but it's being thought about. Like I said, this is kind of like that preliminary plan that's showing these types of walkways and things like that. Because obviously in certain spots, this may not be possible, but in some spots it could be. So we want to envision that future. And then on top of that, so I showed like it had a lot of that top-down view, like here's the street and here's how it's going to work and this is like what it's labeled. They also provided kind of very similar to Harmony Square, a lot of like practical things and they all mesh together. So a lot of the things you see here is already what's going to be in Harmony Square. So it would just be like an extension. So at least when you come downtown, let's say you have to park a little far away, you're already walking and you already have a sense of place like you're in Harmony Square because you're walking to it with all the same materials. One of those other things that's kind of mentioned in here, like I kind of said, we're not redesigning the roadways right now, but we're at least thinking about it. These like patched crossways, whether they're raised or not, or things like that that show the difference, help slow those visual cues, help slow people down on Oak Park Avenue. So those things are still in here, being the bumped outs on the curbs and things like that are all in here. They're all solid planning principles to try and create a better space downtown. But obviously it's a guidebook, it's not the rule at this point. But we want to adopt it just so when we get to final stages where we have money to build things, that we have like at least a guidebook of what we want. So,
I will say like, so this would be your, this is your downtown entering Harmony Square, so we're gonna lean into the piano crosswalks, right? I like that because it is an indication that you're someplace different, right? So it wouldn't, but those would be all brick pavers at that intersection then? Like they have going, okay, I'm just asking. But, looking down to, Oak Park Avenue there, so it's gonna get reduced then?
it's not been determined, like I said, the lane widths and things like
Yeah.
that. I think from a planning standpoint, and just, because we've just been doing the comp plan and talking about transportation, I think, when we get down to it, lane reduction or finding ways to get bike trails or other multimodal paths there is gonna be up for discussion. That's not really in this plan, but they give us options on to like, well, if you did this, you could fit this here, or if you kept it the same way, you could fit this here, and both are better than what you have, right? Like, both are gonna increase your placemaking throughout the downtown and Oak Park Avenue.
No,
So-
I just know like they had done some renovations years back, and one of the things was that, you can park along the side of Oak Park Avenue. If you have this, you're not gonna have parking in front of those businesses. And I'm a person who walks along there, I live down there, so walking there is not an issue. I'm not totally worried about parking in front of Village Pizza or something like that. But I will say, the businesses may have a different,
Sure.
opinion than me on that. But it does look nice, and to your point, if you did have it more channelized like that, you may have, and you have the proper areas for walking. Because there's a lot of areas around here that it's like the Shel Silverstein book, where the sidewalk ends, it literally ends. So this looks pretty ambitious in a good way, but the
Yeah.
problem is that you have stuff there already.
So, like I said, I wasn't like, just looking at the report right now, like pages 13, 14, 15, it's for the Oak Park Avenue, it's 3 different transects, A, B, and C. One shows it with just a 3-lane road with the middle in the lane, and you have bigger like sidewalks on the side. Option B shows it with parking, but it's 2 lanes, which like could change everything. And then there's a third option where there's bike lanes, and it's a 3. So, and like I said, it's not concrete, but it gives us those options when we start really getting nitty gritty. And it's
Right.
like, hey, we're going to engineer these 3 blocks along Oak Park Avenue, and we're putting money into it, doing it. We have these options already, and we can just go to it and say, I like C, let's do that one. Like, we think that would be the most advantageous to us. So it's just getting ahead of the game. And for the fact that we were ahead of the game 6 years ago, it's time to adopt it, and let's, keep the momentum going.
No, I think it's good. I like the idea of planning it, whether, we'll see what the ultimate reality is. But any comments from the commissioners? Any?
I have a lot.
Oh,
Amanda, you gave us great comments. If you want to
Yeah.
speak to them now, so you can talk and discuss with the board,
Yeah,
please do.
so this came up on a previous agenda
Yeah.
that I wasn't gonna be able to attend, so I just sent all my comments, so I'm just gonna kind of briefly go over them, so I'm not boring you guys, but, I asked about adding an existing conditions section to the beginning of the report. I don't know how feasible that is for them now. And then also maybe some project areas for the future, just kind of highlighting, we know this is the project area now, but I think there's probably a little bit of an extension that it'd be nice to kind of show on the screen, but I don't,
So for both of those, I think it's definitely easy to add, like, it won't be a full, 30-page existing condition report, but maybe they have a project overview, but
Like a
actually having
one-pager,
like
2
a 1 or
pages?
2 page,
Yeah.
because the existing conditions in 2019 are way different than today. So it should reflect today, where we're at and where we want to go. So number 1, I think that's super doable. 2, especially with the comp plan and the opportunity sites, which you've all gotten, you'll kind of see we've already talked about expanding that, so I think it would be very easy to say, in the next 10 years, we're on top of this, you should start looking how you're going to expand around the creek and Oak Park Avenue,
yeah.
both
Right.
ways.
I just want to make sure we're getting kind of like a good entranceway to the downtown, because I feel like when people are downtown, they already kind of know, because they got to their destination, but I want people to kind of get the feel when they're coming in, so that's kind of my perspective on that. And then I like the idea of providing more wayfinding signs, and then kind of revising that one sign, the monument sign. I don't know if you guys kind of,
That's so the wayfinding signage through marketing has been, for a very long time, talking about changing those, and those were actually the ones that were approved through the marketing committee and what they want, so.
is that the monument sign too for them? Okay.
So-
What's the monument sign?
It's the one that's on the ground. It's got more masonry material on it,
That's
right?
like orange and purple.
Yeah, it's orange.
It's our new colors, the background's purple and,
Oh, gold, not orange.
and then there's gold,
Yeah.
like, notes and things around it. It's on page 37 if you get a chance, but, I'll pass the comment along. I know that made it in here because that was but again, this was several years ago and we haven't gotten those signs up, but
Yeah. Okay. No,
Noted.
I'm a fan of the wayfinding ones.
yeah.
That monument sign. And then just touching on a couple of random things. I sent the piano design to you guys. So, or the music notes. So to kind of mix it up and not just have the piano ones, maybe some music notes on there. And then, what else did I say? More screening for that new parking lot that's
Mhm.
on Oak Park Avenue. It just,
Oh,
yeah, kind of bare right now, but I don't know what.
That's
there's future plans
temporary for
that.
sure.
Yeah.
It could definitely be put in there. I think long term, that's not gonna be a parking lot. Hopefully that'll get redeveloped at some point. But like you said, putting up temporary, or using some of these elements for now to help it
Right.
would be ideal.
Yeah. And then there was something on there about, Plainfield, and I think I kind of curiously asked, maybe it's the extended curb cuts at the ends for pedestrians that kind of make it feel more pedestrian friendly?
Yeah, so, I, literally where this picture is taken from, I used to work in the building that it's above. So they did that, they brought the curbs in, that's actually a raised platform. And the whole point is, when you hear like raised platform, like speed bump kind of thing, you think, oh my God, like it's not gonna be do-do-do. You can't even tell in the picture it's raised, because it is gradual, but it slows people down. It's clear indicator that the road is getting tighter, you need to slow down, and it becomes super pedestrian friendly. Downtown Plainfield, I never felt unsafe walking to my car, walking to different shops because of these elements specifically. So that's why they chose it as like a possible treatment. I just in general don't want to speak for everyone, but walking around Oak Park Avenue can sometimes just feel unsafe with the speeds of the cars, even though it's marked to go slow, people don't. So those are these like kind of treatments. That's where it's like an inspiration if we decided to do like raised ones. That's
Yeah.
kind of like the
I guess, yeah,
concept behind
that,
it.
just to give my 2 cents, I'm kind of leaning towards, whatever we can do to increase the amount of sidewalk and pedestrian friendliness,
Mhm.
safety, so. That is my comments on this.
All right, no, those are good. And you had mentioned this earlier, though, in one of my maps I marked up with expanding. I know you said this is what we are thinking now, but maybe in 10 years. I just was curious, like, where the current VFW is from Oak Park Avenue to 67th Court, why there was no attempt to put some sort of trees or something along there.
I'll have to take
And
a
I
look.
know it's.
What was the space?
So,
Oak Park Ave?
172nd Street between 66th Court and Oak Park Avenue. I know there are, existing residences versus new, but it seems that's, slightly deficient, like that's a gap, right? Like, you're at that corner. So if you see, right here.
Yep.
I was just, I thought, and I get it, it's not around the new development, but there are stuff, even,
But it should transition.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even the townhome and homes, the new residents off of, why am I blanking here?
The old middle school was,
No,
those, you're
Blank.
thinking further down over.
yeah, further down where you can't walk right now. I
Yeah.
mean, in the wintertime, you really can't walk. But with all the new residences we approved,
You mean like Oak Park Towns,
yeah.
way south on Oak, yeah.
Well,
Not
no,
way south.
not them, no, not that.
Oh.
That's further down, like you said, south. But, I'm blanking on the, it's a northeast, southwest angled street. I don't know why I'm,
Oh, I know what you're talking
Forest Avenue?
Oak Forest Avenue?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
So,
Oh, we're doing the.
yeah, but I know that that's not a really walkable area, because when we walk around the neighborhood, we never go down there because it is dangerous.
Yeah,
But-
there's like 4 lots we just need to get sidewalk on, and you could make it from that DR Horton all the way down.
Yeah, see that, yeah,
downtown.
the DR Horton development, if you're able, but I would think that that's new, and it is funneling or channeling something to that corridor.
Sure.
And then even 66th Court, it's like, yeah, you have the historic home down here, but even on his 66th Court, I would think you should expand it here. Now, you may not go to the east side of it, because you have forest, you have a little bit of the forested area in the creek, but I think those are natural
Sure.
ones. I'll give it to you when I leave, but, because I know it's hard to
I'll take
describe
it
it.
back to Lakota. I don't want to just push this through. I want it to be right. So
Yeah.
if you guys feel, and you guys are the planning commission, so you should be working on these long-range plans, I want to definitely get it right. So I'll definitely talk to Lakota and get those things spread out, and take all your comments back to them.
And if you want to make it super friendly, something I used to rent an apartment right near those areas where you're talking about. And I would run early in the morning to get over to Yankee Woods. There's a way to potentially, they've got trails that come out, and then they
Yeah.
dead end nowhere. And we don't have sidewalks that connect, but that would be super cool to be able to connect all of Tinley with those trails over there, right? I mean, they're pretty endless, once you do that.
So we,
So it's
we're-
15.9-mile loop if you run the whole thing.
I will not run.
I'm telling you,
You could bike
it's a lot of real estate though, for real,
I don't even
right?
know if I can make that on a bicycle.
You can.
We published for June 19th, but I'm thinking maybe we'll just, I'll get all this comments back, and thank you so much for giving that input. And maybe we'll just delay it. I'll talk to Lakota to see how long it would take them to kind of do some of these things, so then we can either delay it one meeting or two. There's no need to rush this. It took a while to get here, so.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, seeing no public here, we'll move on to go to the order.
So first thing, good to the order, it's actually, I have a presentation. This was Fifth Third Bank. You gave them the approval for the special use in front of the Brixmore, but you wanted to see those parkings change, that parking change. So they did. So they're in the permitting stage now. They moved their handicap to the building, removed some of that landscaping, and now there's gonna be no handicap crossing any traffic.
Okay, good.
So they listened to you, they were able to get it done. They had to shift everything south a little bit. And then a transformer had to move, but they'll screen that with landscaping. So it's all, they're not losing any landscaping, anything like that. They had to shuffle a couple things around, but we just wanted to let you know that, they heard you, they're not coming back, and they were able to get it done. Oh, and Lori added all the trees and everything. So, anyway, that's what happened. Other good of the order, I just want to let everyone know that Community Development Director is changed. Dan Ritter's was not appointed last Tuesday, but our building code official, Mike Coleman, is the interim Community Development Director. So just in general, if you're emailing me or have questions or things like that, you can always ask Mike Coleman as well. He's great, and we're looking forward. He's doing this interim part, see if he likes it, and might just be the director from now on. So I just want to let you guys know that.
Okay.
Comment, Dan is moving on? What's happening?
Dan was not reappointed so the directors get reappointed annually, and he was not reappointed. And they appointed Mike Coleman as the interim.
Wow.
Dan was around a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other good of the order?
Not for me, Michael. Oh, wait, what?
The ethics. Thanks.
You can do it.
Okay. We have the annual ethics statements just for you guys to fill out too. So I'll pass them out. It's just like
If we
I
haven't turned them in
pledge to be
already,
ethical.
right?
What'd you say?
Unless we already turned them in.
That's right, I guess many of you have done it electronically.
I know I saw Terry, yeah.
I handed mine in person.
Or you
Okay.
handed your, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, anyone else I have?
Yeah, just stick around after the meeting.
Yeah.
Go see Michael, read and sign your name. Okay. Move on to receiving comments from the public. Seeing no public here, we'll move on to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion to close the meeting? Do I hear a second? Motion made by Commissioner Manny, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carried. This meeting is adjourned at 8:39 PM. Have a good night, everyone.